Did Joseph Stalin, the man who led the Soviet Union to victory in World War II, also orchestrate one of the deadliest famines in human history? This question has perplexed historians for decades. Let's begin our journey into unraveling the enigma of this dictator by stepping back in time to the year 1878 in the small town of Gori, Georgia, where Stalin was born. Born into poverty as Iosif Vissarionis Dzhugashvili, young Stalin faced a harsh and challenging upbringing. His life took a dramatic turn when he was sent to study at a seminary in Tbilisi, intending to become a priest. However, the fire of revolution was already kindling within him. He dropped out and devoted himself to the revolutionary movement against the Tsarist regime, adopting the name Stalin, meaning man of steel. Stalin's revolutionary zeal propelled him to the forefront of the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, where he played a crucial role. This was a turning point in not just Stalin's life, but for the entire world. Russia was transformed into the communist Soviet Union, and Stalin found himself in positions of increasing power and influence. But the real shift in Stalin's journey came in 1924, following the death of Vladimir Lenin. Lenin, the first leader of the Soviet Union, left a power vacuum. Stalin, the cunning political player he was, capitalized on this opportunity. He swiftly outmaneuvered his rivals, rising to the apex of power, and by the end of the decade, Stalin was the uncontested leader of the Soviet Union. Stalin's rise to power was as dramatic as it was brutal, setting the stage for a rule marked by fear and absolute power. But was he always the ruthless dictator history remembers him as? Stay tuned to find out. And while you're waiting for the next episode, why not hit that subscribe button? Join us as we continue to explore the fascinating, often chilling world of history's most notorious figures. How did Joseph Stalin, once a humble seminary student, transform into a dictator with power enough to shape the course of history? This question takes us to the heart of Stalin's reign, marked by policies that drove the Soviet Union toward industrialization, and yet caused widespread suffering. Stalin's rule was characterized by an iron hand approach, and a notable example of this was his 5-year plans. Introduced in the late 1920s, these plans aimed to transform the Soviet Union from an agrarian society into an industrial powerhouse. The first 2 of these plans focused on heavy industry, such as steel and coal production. The results were staggering. The Soviet Union's industrial output saw significant growth, surpassing even that of some Western nations. However, this rapid industrialization came at a high human cost. Stalin's regime implemented forced collectivization, a policy that stripped the peasantry of their lands and livestock and grouped them into collective farms. This led not only to resistance and rebellion but also to one of the most devastating famines in history. Millions of people perished, their lives sacrificed in the name of progress. Stalin's reign was also marked by the Great Purge, a campaign of political repression that peaked in the late 1930s. Stalin, obsessed with the idea of internal enemies, orchestrated a wave of arrests, show trials, and executions. The climate of fear and suspicion penetrated every level of society, from the highest echelons of power to the ordinary worker. No one was safe from Stalin's watchful eye. The rule of Stalin was a time of extraordinary paradoxes. On one hand, there was rapid industrial growth and the rise of the Soviet Union as a global superpower. On the other, there was a climate of fear, widespread famine, and the loss of millions of lives. Stalin's rule was a paradox of progress and suffering, of power and fear. But how did his reign impact the world beyond the Soviet Union's borders? This question will guide us in our journey as we delve deeper into the life and legacy of Joseph Stalin. How did Stalin, the man who ruled with an iron fist, navigate the treacherous waters of World War II? Let's delve into this chapter of history. Stalin's wartime leadership was a complex mix of strategic decisions, political maneuvering, and brutal force. In the late 1930s, Stalin sought to secure the Soviet Union's western border by signing the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with Nazi Germany. This non-aggression pact, named after the foreign ministers who signed it, was a tactical move. It allowed Stalin to buy time, fortify his defenses, and avoid a two-front war. But this pact was not to last. In June 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. Stalin, caught off guard, struggled to respond effectively. His initial orders were met with confusion and delay, leading to significant losses. Yet, in the face of adversity, Stalin managed to rally his people and turn the tide of the war. With industrial production moved to the Ural Mountains and Siberia, the Soviet Union managed to outproduce the German war machine. Stalin's Red Army, hardened by the brutal conflict, began to push back the invaders, displaying a resilience that surprised the world. By 1945, the Soviet Union had not only survived the invasion, but had also played a crucial role in the defeat of Nazi Germany. But the victory came at a high price. The Soviet Union suffered immense losses, estimated to be over 20 million lives. Cities were decimated, families torn apart, and an entire generation scarred by the horrors of war. After the war, Stalin spearheaded a massive rebuilding effort. He aimed to restore the Soviet Union to its former glory, or even surpass it. Despite the enormous challenges, he managed to achieve significant industrial growth and rebuild many of the war-torn cities. Stalin's leadership during World War II shaped the course of history and left an indelible mark on the Soviet Union. But what was his legacy after his death in 1953? We'll explore this intriguing question in our next segment. What is the legacy of Joseph Stalin, a man who wielded power with an iron fist and left an indelible mark on the 20th century? As we contemplate this, it's essential to visit the immediate aftermath of Stalin's death. His passing on March 5, 1953, was met with a mix of dread and relief, mourning, and celebration. The Soviet Union plunged into collective grief, while the rest of the world watched with a mixture of apprehension and hope. Stalin's successors were quick to initiate a process known as de-Stalinization. Spearheaded by Nikita Khrushchev, this movement aimed to dismantle the cult of personality built around Stalin, denouncing his purges and mass repressions. The country saw a shift towards a more moderate form of governance, yet this did not erase the impact of Stalin's reign. His influence remained deeply ingrained in the Soviet Union's fabric, and his policies continued to shape its trajectory. Fast forward to the modern era, and we find a complex tapestry of views on Stalin. In Russia, there's a dichotomy between those who revere him as a strong leader who transformed the Soviet Union into a global superpower, and those who remember him as a ruthless dictator responsible for the death and suffering of millions. Globally, Stalin is often seen as a figure of terror, synonymous with totalitarianism. Yet, there are also those who acknowledge his role in defeating Nazi Germany during World War II, recognizing his strategic acumen while condemning his brutal methods. Stalin's legacy is not black and white, but exists in shades of gray. He was a man of contradictions, a revolutionary and a dictator, a war hero and a tyrant, a symbol of strength and a harbinger of fear. His impact on the 20th century is undeniable, and his shadow continues to loom large over Russia and the world. Joseph Stalin, a man of paradoxes, has left a complex legacy that continues to be debated by historians and scholars. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more insightful videos like this. Thank you for watching,